Well, you're not having anything else to do, right?
Welcome, everybody. We're recording now. Thank you for joining us today for session 3 for our Dream Big Book Club. We're glad to have you here. We hope you're staying warm wherever you are. Before we get started on session 3, I wanted to review one thing from between the sessions of sessions 2 and 3. I try to put a post up on the Facebook groups to keep you thinking during the week. And I realized this morning that I neglected to do that. I did post the questions that for review, but there's usually a between sessions personal study thing that I can put up, and I forgot to do that. So I'm sorry about that. But anyways, Bob was talking in this between sessions thing about collecting your dreams. And so I put some questions up there to ask yourself about that as we try to hone in on our absurd expectations and our what our dreams really are and what ones we're going to work on achieving. So take a look at that. I just wanted to call your attention to that. That's in there. I'm talking about our dreams and if they're how we sort them out and how we what ones we talk ourselves into and what ones we talk ourselves out of. And when we look ahead and try to forecast like the worst possible outcome of things, like, well, I'm not going to put that down because it's sort of not even going to happen, that we talk ourselves out of our dreams. And more importantly, we talk ourselves out of God's ability to bring our ambitions to life. And that was a really big aha for me. And He knows and He has great plans for us. And when it comes to our dreams, He wants us to go really big and go Grand Canyon, right? So we have to allow for that and not be conservative and scarcity, have that scarcity mindset, but to really think abundantly in when we're in this space of our dreams. So I want to just call that to your attention first thing this morning. So today we're going to be working on clearing the path. Now that we have our dreams identified or are working on that part wherever you are, we want to make sure that we're clearing the path. And clearing the path means identifying limiting beliefs and then moving them aside so you can get at those beautiful big ambitions that God has for you. So we need to get the stuff out of the way. And sometimes that stuff is us in our own way. And you've heard that before about I need to get out of my own way, right? So when we start to engage in the process of allowing ourselves to dream big, we often run up against that brick wall of our limiting beliefs. And I say that in all phases, or all areas of my life. It's the 6 inches between your ears that keeps you in and out of the things you want, be it in your business or whatever your goals are with your family and relationships. Like we really need to believe what's possible here for our lifetime. And these are the things that we've been told and that we've been that we've chosen to believe about ourselves over the years of the labels that we've gotten based on past experiences and other people telling us, warning us, oh, don't do that, don't want to go skydiving, you might die. Well, oh, I went skydiving after I graduated from college and I'm really glad that I did because that opened up a great opportunity for me about not being fearful of things. So when we cling to the assumptions of that truth of like we can't do and our limiting beliefs as being truth and drag them along with us throughout our life, we can't go Grand Canyon. We can't open ourselves up to um, dreaming big because we self-impose all those limitations. So we believe what our parents and teachers and coaches and others have said about us, and we set those beliefs in stone. And Bob says actually they should be more like sandcastles that have been long since washed away. Like get rid of all that stuff. So as we begin to look at the reasons why we think we can't pursue our dreams, we will discover new paths through places that we previously assumed were impassable. So we're going to clear those paths out of the way. So in this respect, other people are usually more willing to help us than we might believe. So we need to reach out. Big dreams can intersect with our own. The big dreams of other people, if we're reaching out to others and collaborating in dream speak, if you will, we can meet up with people whose dreams can intersect with ours. And we can really create beautiful bridges that unite what once appeared to be separate. We appear to be separate people with separate dreams, but that we can collaborate together and we can make our dreams even bigger. So that's what really exciting. You know how when you're drawn to people or people show up in your life and you're sort of curious about like, wow. And then you learn later why you were meant to meet each other. That opening up of yourself and your mind, being open to receive that abundance, manifesting that abundance is what really allows us to get really powerful in our big dreams. So clearing the path to make room for that also requires us to face down our own fears and take some leaps of faith. because we have to get out of our comfort zone and have to experience discomfort, inconvenience, frustration, and disappointment along the way. And those are all steps toward achieving our big dreams. So if we've cleared a path by challenging our old beliefs and removing those false assumptions, we'll have more than enough room to blaze that trail and see our big dreams come to life. So that's what we're really focusing on this week, is clearing that path. Does that all make sense to you guys? Good morning, Kate. Okay, so getting things started for this third session. I want to ask you if somebody could share a little bit about what are the distractions that are in your way of your dreams. Has anybody thought about that in regard to your dreams? What are you stumbling about on any given day? What's in your way? Does anybody have a?
I can share a quick thing real quick. What just recently in the last couple of years with me, it's like, oh, I'm too old now. And it's like, because people, they say, oh, when you get to 65, we have this notion that, you're supposed to retire and get on Social Security and Medicare and all that stuff. And it sets up a thing in your mind like, oh, that's the end of your life. Like, you're done now. You shouldn't go any further.
You should get
So
meals.
we really had to battle that.
Right, you got to get Meals on Wheels. What'd you say? Right, and people say you got to find your faith then. People say you better find your faith then, because you're on the downhill, right? You're going sliding into the terminal, like you're landing in heaven or not. So you better gear up on your faith, and you better get to know Jesus. Hurry up, because there's going to be a day of reckoning for you, Leslie. You're 65. Wow.
Leslie, I got a lot of years on top of that. So
What kind of thing is that?
I'm still here.
That is a big distraction. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have one?
Well, limiting beliefs are a huge distraction.
Mm-hmm. And we got to be able to identify those and then turn those around with an affirmation, or we got to figure out some way to get us to right that ship when we hear ourselves say, it's just like me to forget my keys or to go to the store without my credit card. I do that all the time. I never remember her name. Oh my God, I always miss the bus. Whatever the deal is, the more we say that, the more we get comfortable with that. And that's what we allow ourselves to forget our keys, go to the store without our credit card, forget her name, and miss the bus. That's what we do, because we said, oh yeah, that's just like me.
Yeah, procrastination too is another biggie.
Yeah.
When you need to do something that you are kind of not comfortable doing, man, you can find a bunch of things to do otherwise.
Especially in our world where we don't have a boss. So that I always enjoy the fact that there are no have tos, but boy, that's permission to just let it do whatever it wants. And there's no, remember, it's in here and in here that keeps us on our path, because we can take the rest of the day off, right? All of us. And it's totally okay. And that's a good thing. My trainer, I was working with a trainer last fall, and she told me the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I'm like, what? And she goes, think about that. If you don't plan your meals, if you plan your meals, you can take 30 minutes and plan your meals for the entire week. And I'm dying to be a meal planner. That's one of my goals, to plan my meals, because I don't. And she said, and if you plan your workouts the night before and you get up, you lay your clothes out and you get going, those things they just get done automatic, because you set yourself up for success. So if you don't meal plan, you don't plan your workouts, and what else don't you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't get that PV, and I don't get that new rank, and I don't get that business builder. And I just give myself permission to just be at the same rank for 8 years. I did that for 8 years, stayed at the same rank. I mean, right? We all let ourselves. And so it's on us, is what we're saying. That's why this week it's super duper important to identify what we're doing and allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to do that stuff so that we can get that out of the way.
Yeah, I think I was lucky. My mother was a procrastinator, and I saw her, when the time crunch came, she was really stressed out trying to push it. And I ain't gonna do that.
Well, I'm late all the time because I'm doing that. So, and Barry's like, oh, she's always late. And then when you hear somebody say that, I go to a gathering in the old days about when we used to get together, and I would be late or I would text them on my way. Yeah, she's never here. We're never going to start on time because she's always late. And I used to give myself permission and say, hey, I have 5 kids. I heard that if you have 5 kids, you have 1 minute for each kid because they mess with you with their shoes on the way out the door and stuff. So I'm taking my 5 minutes permission to be 5 minutes late all the time. 5 minutes late is on time for me. I did that for years. But what am I doing? I'm allowing myself to be late. And I text people all the time, I'm on my way. And I'm like, am I really going to make up stuff like I got stopped by a train, or it's on me because I hit that snooze button and it backs all the way up to when I didn't get out of bed. So, I mean, you really need to take a look. Get yourself a hand mirror. And every time you have a question, look in the mirror because the answer is looking right back at you. It's on what you're doing. And I think that's the tough stuff. And that's the hard work. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is really self-examination. And this is, Dreaming Big 201 to me. This is next level. So I want you to think about that. So Suzanne, do you want to read that next little session that we have? And then we'll put the video on. Are you good?
On the page on 53, right?
Page 43. Page you on.
Oh, I'm on 53.
I think that's next week, maybe.
No, I'm on.
Oh, well, you could be. No, it's a 43, right?
Oh, I thought it was 53. Plant carefully.
No, it's not. That's the in between sessions. It's page 43.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm on page 43. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So how do you identify with the most, what in this scene, Mary or Martha, or why?
Who would you be? Would you guys be Mary?
Yeah.
Who's sitting with Jesus, or would you be Martha trying to run around and impress? Like when you have people over, are you like, oh, do you need tea? And here's a piece of banana bread. Do you want a napkin? Do you need to sit over here? Where would you be comfortable?
Yes. So you have to choose your priorities. Well, you're a service person, that's why. But you have to choose your priorities. And obviously Jesus would take precedence over fixing a meal if I were in the room.
Or even if it's not Jesus,
God, yeah.
even if it's like your friend or your neighbor, like let's focus on Heather who came over. Like, how are you, Heather? Come into my home and sit down, talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
yes, all that running around, but we got to get right here with people, right?
I read something about Mother Teresa once. I guess she was really good about being very focused on the person she was spending time with. And somebody asked her one time how she came upon that skill, because it is a skill. And she said, well, I believe in God, and I believe that God created all of us and we are all his image. So when I'm spending time with you, I'm spending time with the Lord. Why wouldn't I give you my full attention? And that really wowed me, So, I mean, of course, it's in one ear and out the other a lot of the times, but I mean, if we could focus, if we keep that, somewhere up in our heads, I mean, that should help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Francie. What were you going to say, Belinda?
I was going to say I'm learning to be a Mary more and more. It was different when I only had married children coming back, and they all pitched in and, dishes or cooking or whatever. And now we have 7 grandchildren, and I want to spend my time with them when they're here. So I do a lot of prepping before. And then I just say, no, I'm not going to do that because right now I'm going to hold this grandchild or play this game. I don't care if there's dishes on the counter.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And part of that is
Get upset
planning,
later.
the planning part, just like the meal planning and getting your clothes out before you work out. And you planned so that you could be free
Throw it in the oven.
and be fully
Yeah.
present, right? The sheet pan meal is going in, the crock pot, the whatever. So you can be fully present with what matters to
Well,
you.
you
So
have to choose what's important to you.
Mhm.
And that's been hard for me to learn. because if I see dirt on the floor, dust, I'm a clean house freak. I'll go get the sweeper and try and get rid of it.
Right. Right. That's good. Good morning, Chris. Okay.
Good morning.
So we're ready to do we're talking about clearing the path today, Chris, about getting the obstacles out of the way so we can go for our goals, because we're in our way. A lot of times it's us right here with our thinking. So you are ready with the video, Suzanne?
Yeah, and everybody would mute themselves, not you, nor Nicole, or I think you might do the video.
Oh, no, we can mute ourselves. We just won't mute you this week like I did last week. I
Oh,
muted
you muted me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew
So
something.
everybody's going to mute. I can mute people, or mute yourself if you can, and then we'll watch the video together. Okay. Oh, we're all good.
Well, here we go. Oops. Bird just flew in the window. Can everyone hear it?
Welcome back, everybody. We're in session 3. We're talking about your dreams, your ambitions. We've covered some ground. We talked about who are you, where are you, what do you want. We've talked about exploring opportunities, finding these absurd expectations, vetting them, comparing them not to each other, but to your other ambitions. Looking at scripture and saying, is this things that Jesus said would outlast you? We talked about who is going to be in the capsule with you. He's talking into your ear. Who's in the capsule for the ride, and putting Jesus in the window and continuing to make lots of small movements towards him. What I want to talk about now is to clear the path. And let me tell you what I mean by that. What we have, you can think of them as limiting beliefs. They're beliefs that we've gathered along the way about how our life works. I was told when I was young, Goths aren't good at math. And it turns out they're right. But what if that kept me away from being an engineer? What if that kept me away from working for NASA? Because somebody told me Goths aren't good at math. My dad, he loves me, I love him. And because he's a good dad, he doesn't want to see me get hurt. We walked around in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and he told me that you have to step way over these logs, because if you don't, the rattlesnake will bite you on the leg. You guys, I am 60 years old. You know how many rattlesnakes I've seen? 0. And that's rounding up. What I have is this limiting belief. And it came because my dad loved me. He didn't want me to get bit, or he didn't want to suck the venom out. I'm not sure. But he wanted beautiful things in my life. And so now I'm afraid of logs. I see a twig on the ground and I jump a foot. One of the things that happened to you along the way that you picked up are these limiting beliefs about how deep you could go in a relationship. Let's say your parents had split up at some time. You might have formed a limiting belief that if I actually give my heart away, eventually somebody will leave me. If I'm actually vulnerable, did you have a friend who burned you? Did you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend at some time in high school and things went too far, too fast, and you said, I'm never doing that in relationships again? And I wonder if we're missing out on some of the beautiful things and expressions of love and caring and affection because we developed a limiting belief. Clearing the path means identifying what those are and then moving on the side so you can get at these beautiful big ambitions that God has for you. I have a drawer in my house. It's got all these keys in it. I've got keys to stuff I don't even know what the key goes to. But I wanted to keep the key because I knew there might be a time where I'd find a lock that I couldn't find a key for, and I'd go back to the drawer. You know how many times I've gone back to the drawer? 0. But I've accumulated all these keys, and you have too. You have these things that you accumulated, beliefs about yourself. And if we want to carve this new little groove, if we want to go Grand Canyon on it, you're going to need to do a little bit of housekeeping together. We pick these things up. We come by them honestly, it just happens. That's what happens. You go around the sun enough times, it happens. One of the ambitions that I had when I was in high school, I wanted to sail across the Pacific Ocean. Here's the problem. I didn't have a boat. And we all have impediments. But I finally got one in college. A buddy and I, we got scraped together some money. We got this boat. We entered the Transpac race and we sailed all the way to Hawaii. It's pretty cool sailing to Hawaii. You know what's a drag? Sailing back. And it's like kind of a round trip ticket. So we left the Ala Moana Marina in Hawaii. And I looked back and I saw we were trailing a little bit of kelp behind the keel because the sailboats have really tall masts and big sails, which makes you go fast, but they have really long keels that are filled with lead to keep you upright. And when kelp gets around the keel and the more water you pass over, the more kelp you collect. I saw this piece of kelp. I thought we got it off the boat in Hawaii. You guys, we passed underneath the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. I looked back to see the bridge, you know what I saw? Piece of kelp. I carried that piece of kelp 2,750 miles across the Pacific Ocean without even knowing it. And you know what? It slowed us down. That's what happens when you have a limiting belief. What you got to do is clear away the kelp, the stuff you just picked up along the way. I've been around the sun 60 times. Maybe you've been around it 20. You got some kelp, and here's how you back down the kelp. You go into the wind, you push the sail back, and you actually let the wind push you backward. And for the first time, the kelp will float free from the keel. It'll drop to the bottom. Backing down the kelp might be something that you do each morning. Some people in faith communities call it a quiet time. I haven't had a quiet time in 25 years. Mine are really loud. I'm thinking about all the stuff I learned the day before. I'm checking it against scripture to see if it's really true or if it just sounds right. And if it just doesn't sound right, if it actually squares with scripture, I'll talk about it. If it doesn't square with scripture, you won't hear from me again. It's backing down the kelp. And clearing the path means backing down the kelp in your life. But it isn't enough just to back down all the kelp constantly. I know a couple of people have been going in reverse their whole life. They're actually not getting much done. Their keel is clear, but they're not getting anywhere. And if you can identify with that because fear has kept you there, that's a limiting belief. Go down that rabbit hole. Do a little spelunking. That's what you do when you explore a cave. You get to the bottom of the cave, you turn on the light, and you say, what's there? And where did it come from? Once you've figured out where some of these limiting beliefs came from, come up with a way to overcome those. And you overcome a limiting belief with a very keen sense of purpose and a ton of action. It isn't just deciding, plotting a new course. That's not going to get you anywhere. That's going to get a line on a paper. It's actually untying from the dot and saying, let's go do this thing. We started many years ago a school in Mogadishu, Somalia. And if you follow the news, Somalia is a place with lots of upset. There's no government. There hasn't been for decades. There's no army. There's no military. There's no police. There's just a lot of people with machine guns. But there's a lot of kids that are denied an opportunity for a school. And so for some friends and I landed in Mogadishu, we didn't wait for an invitation. We're here. God's nuts about kids. We're pretty good at starting schools. You find an ambition, you wed it with an opportunity, or you make the opportunity and you land. I thought ahead. I called these security guys and I said, could you pick us up? Because it's pretty sporty. It's Mogadishu. Could you pick us up and give us a ride to the hotel? Now, we've stayed in 3 hotels in Mogadishu. All 3 have been blown out. It's crazy. It's a country that has a lot of upset. Well, these guys arrived to pick us up. This is our first trip to Mogadishu. And they put us in this car with tinted windows. And in front of it, there's another truck with a bunch of guys with machine guns. What I learned later, you do not want to be the guy in the car with the tinted windows because that's who everybody goes after. The way they do it, if you're driving through these streets in Mogadishu, there's like bullet holes everywhere. There's mortar rounds, like the pock marks from that. It's like a level of Call of Duty. I'm like, I've been here, hang a left. We're driving down this road and a car cuts us off. And that's what they do if they're trying to get you. And the driver of our car said, this is not good. And you guys, there are 2 things you do not want to hear in Somalia. I'm the captain now, or this is really bad. And the guys in the pickup truck started shooting. And everybody, and you guys, all I could think to say was, yikes. And I know it doesn't sound big and deep and theological, but it's big, it's deep, and it's theological. If you want to get after your big ambitions, if you want to carve this new groove and go Grand Canyon on it, if you want to make headway on these things, you got to stop living in the middle of comfortable. And I'm comfortable. I've got a car, I got a house, I got a wife. And comfortable people don't need Jesus. Desperate people need Jesus. You want to get after your ambitions, you figure out what's holding you back. You clear the decks with that thing, and then you take action on it. There's a great verse. It's Philippians 2:20, and it's Paul talking about Timothy behind his back. This is what he says. I don't have anybody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in the people around him. Boy, wouldn't that be great if that was said of us? That as we're pursuing our own ambitions, that we would actually find some of our ambitions and the path towards them by taking a genuine interest in the other people's ambitions. Look around the room. Those are your other people. Take an interest in their ambition and engage them in where they're at. Find people along the way. You want to find the fastest way towards your ambitions? Look for opportunities to serve other people that are sometimes in a whole lot of need. It was a couple of years ago, and it was in Detroit. And there was a truck driver driving his 18-wheeler down the highway. And as he passed under this overpass, he saw a young man standing on the edge of the overpass. Looked like he was going to jump. Now, I know that truck driver had places to be. He was probably running late for as many appointments as you and I have. But instead of continuing on his way, you know what he did? He stopped his truck underneath that overpass. He didn't stop there. He got on the radio. He called every single trucker going in any direction on that highway, told them what was happening. They took an interest in this kid, and 13 trucks lined up underneath that bridge. And this is what they were saying. If you jump, you are not falling far. That's the Christian community. That is people taking a genuine interest, believing in their faith, rolling it out, and taking action. And they do that because it's an expression of their faith. They don't want applause. They just want to show up. They're self-aware enough to know that their biggest ambitions will be found in serving other people. And what it takes is a combination of taking action and then being obedient to what God said to do. It's crazy. I don't know if you followed what's been going on in Afghanistan, and it's a bunch. The Taliban won't let little girls learn how to read or write. You know why? They're girls. Malala said it so well. There's nothing that scares a terrorist more than a girl with a book. And so we read about this, and I don't know anybody in Afghanistan. Do you? So get this. I got on WhatsApp. I met this guy. He said he's from Afghanistan. I'm like, awesome. I'm looking for somebody. And so we started corresponding back and forth, but I don't know what team he's playing for. You cannot be talking to the wrong team or you go to jail. So we went to the friends on the East Coast that actually know who's who in Afghanistan. And then here's what they said. He's a good guy. I'm like, got any more detail? Crickets. So do you know what we did? A couple friends and I, we flew to Afghanistan to meet him. What a stupid idea. We got off the plane in Kabul and we get a text message from him. This is what it says. We can't meet you at the airport. Shoot. Actually, I didn't say shoot. I'm taking baby steps. But he said what you need to do is leave the airport grounds and start walking through Kabul. And people, I do not blend. Said after a while, you're going to come to a car. The last number of the license plate is a 7. Get in the car. Now, how many of you guys would say, I'm out of here? But I don't know. Just see these ambitions. Remind yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. If you know who you are, where you are, what you want, you know why you're doing what you're doing, you'll take a walk. And so we found this car. I mean, like, what could possibly go wrong? We got in the car, we started driving around. You know what? This guy we're talking to is way up in the government in Afghanistan. What he wanted to know is this. He wanted to know if we do what he told us to do. Because if we do what he told us to do, he'd start a girls' school in Afghanistan. And we did. You know what? That's what God wants us to do. He just wants us to do what he told us to do. Let your ambitions point you back to the scripture. They say, what are the things Jesus told us to do? I don't care what your opinions are. Opinions are like ears. Everybody's got a couple of them. Quit arguing about all this stuff. Do what he told you to do. And it's to love everybody. Don't start vetting people like you're a bouncer. Everybody gets in towards Jesus. Let everybody in. And there's something beautiful that'll happen. You're going to get more and more clarity on your ambitions as you do if you don't get distracted. And that's where I want to finish our session on, because your distractions are getting in the way of you pursuing these beautiful ambitions that you have. I'm like that dog in Up. You know, he says, like squirrel. Don't get distracted. Satan doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. And some of you are living incredibly distracted lives. You're looking at your iPhones constantly. You guys, that is a distraction. That is not the first time an Apple did us in. What I want to do is identify the distractions that are getting you off message and put them to one side. And we all have these crazy little picadillos. You know, one for me, toothpicks. I hate them. And I grew up in a family where after like dinner, the toothpicks would come out and it would be like oral hygiene time. And I had this unreasonable belief that a piece of beef would come flying out of somebody's mouth and hit me in the forehead. And so I've got this thing about toothpicks. Do you know what's at every table in the country of Uganda? Toothpicks. It's like an episode of Fear Factor. I'll lie to people. I'm like, look, it's the president, and ditch the toothpicks. But these have become a distraction. For some people, it'll be the craziest thing. I've got a friend who cannot have different vegetables touching one another on the plate. Is that crazy? Another friend, if they get brushed up against on their left arm, they have to tap themselves on the right arm. I am not kidding. There's this friend I've got that if the toilet paper comes out underneath the roll rather than over, you know who you are. Like they lose it. Man, that's just weird. What's happening is your distractions are getting in the way of you making progress on your ambitions. So figure out what's been distracting you. And here's the deal. Don't let anything but Jesus distract you. And it's being so clear on why you're doing what you're doing, having such beauty in the ambition that you're pursuing, knowing why you're doing it, that you'll live a life undistracted. And it's then that you take these steps. One last thing that I want to talk about. When I was young, my dad smoked. He smoked all the time. And I was really concerned because I read on the side of the cigarettes, it said like in the Surgeon General, like cigarettes will kill you. And I was a young kid, but I'm like, well, that sounds like a really bad idea. The name of the Surgeon General was a guy we called Coop. And you know what I did in junior high school? I wrote to Coop. I wrote to the Surgeon General. I said, my name is Bob Goff. My dad smokes. And I want you to write him a letter and tell him to stop smoking. You know what happened? A couple weeks later, a letter came from the Surgeon General of the United States of America addressed to my dad. You know what the letter said? Stop smoking. And he did. I'm telling you, take action. Find an opportunity. Be undistracted. Go Grand Canyon on your beautiful ambitions. That's where it gets me.
Wow.
Isn't that good? I liked it when he said, that's not the first time an apple got us in trouble.
Oh my gosh. And I like hearing it all different ways. We've read that stuff this week, and then I gave my version in the beginning about distractions and clearing the path. And then you guys chipped in with your stuff, and then he spins it another way. And it sounds sometimes like repetition, and it's the same stuff. I read that, Bob. But you know, when we really learn to receive the information in different ways, we learn something every time someone presents it differently. We hear another little nugget of information that's going to help us move on our project. So, of dreaming big. Okay, sorry, Nicole. I know you have kids in the back. All right, so I guess we need to go to Nicole. Are you in a spot where you can be focused, Nicole, on what we have to say, sort of?
Yeah, so Hi, everybody. I know this is such great information. So I thought we would take some time and we're going to do a little take inventory, as Bob refers to it. And we're going to focus on clearing our path. But what we're going to do is I'm going to give 5 questions to kind of summarize the last chapters we've read. And we're going to partner up. And so that way we have accountability on where we're going and keeping those ambitions clear. And so we can clear that path to move forward. So I'm going to start out with the 5 questions that we're going to focus on. And I'm going to post these in our Facebook group as well. So that way you can reference them, but I'll give you time to write them down. But the first one we're going to talk about is limiting beliefs to release. Now, this one took me a little bit to think about. I didn't know what my limiting beliefs were from even my child. So this could be something, a limiting belief that you are focusing on that is current or in the past, as in childhood. And so this took me a while, and I came up with it this morning, thinking about, and it kind of goes back to the Mary and Martha story we just heard that Suzanne read. And I've been Martha. I have been totally Martha. I'm a mom of 3, and I homeschool my children and remote and all that. And this is just how my mom and my grandma, they all cooked for their families. They all clean for their families. They all do the laundry. I grew up on a farm, so they are a farmer mentality. And so I have that limiting belief that I spend most of my day taking care of my family, making sure laundry's done, cooking for all my kids, making sure the house is clean. And I am a personality, so everything has to be perfect. And I spend so much time on that. And then even with Martha, thinking about how she's preparing for guests to come over. When I have a family ordeal or a party, I put all my family aside and make sure the house is perfect and making sure the food is presented perfect and it's on trays and it's beautiful. And I spend so much time on that. And I put my kids to the side. Unlike what Francine said, instead of saying, when your children has needs and looking at God talking to me here, I'm like, you have to wait until after the party. What am I doing, right? So that is my limiting belief. I spend so much time and that it isn't wasting my eyes, but it is not focusing on my ambition. So you have to think about your childhood ambitions or what's stopping you right now. That is something that you believe is true. So you're going to write that down and think about that. And you might not know, and it's okay if you don't know, because I didn't know for a while. It took me till this morning to think about that and put it in perspective. But we're going to discuss this with your partner too. And so they can help guide you as well. So the second question is time wasters to overcome. Now this I can explain my time wasters.
Oh,
Time wasters to overcome. So what are your biggest distractions cluttering up your time, energy, and attention each day? Now, this kind of rolls into my limiting belief, right? So, because I spend a lot of time picking up after my children and cooking and grocery shopping and all the things that take place, right? To make sure that I'm a good housewife, right? So think about those that you're going to share. And then the third one is distractions to eliminate. Now, Francine, this is something that you posted. It wasn't, Bob does this every Thursday, right? He says no to something. When was the last time you arranged your schedule or turned down your request in order to keep your dream path clear? Now, for me, I don't know when the last time I said no to something. I was like, holy cow, right? I'm a yes person. And I'm like, oh, we'll make it happen. We'll do it. What am I doing, right? So if you are a no person, rock on for you, right? That's something that you're really good at, and people might not see it as good because they're like, oh, she won't do it. Or she won't. But yes, because you're determined on what your path is. For me, I have to clear that because I say yes to too much. So I had to figure out what I'm going to say no to. And like, even it doesn't have to be Thursday, like Francine posted, it doesn't have to, but I love that every week you have a goal to say no to something. Because if you are a yes person, what is your goal going to be? Sorry, my children are crying in the background because they're being forced to do schoolwork. So if you hear them crying, that's what they're crying about. Okay, so think about that. So the third one is distractions to eliminate. The fourth one, improvements to make. So this is talking about we have this kind of going back, it kind of almost summarizes this. What improvements are you going to make in order to move forward, right? Because again, we have, in my case, I have distractions all over. So I need to stay focused and say yes to the things that are really important to my ambition that I want to go after. So what improvements are you going to make? And yours, so this might be different than what your distractions were or your time waster or your limiting beliefs. So think about what that means for you. And if you don't know, it's okay, because we're going to declare our ambition with our partner, and then they're going to guide you in this, because it's so much easier, I feel, that for outsiders to look in and say, what are you doing at? Why are you doing this, right? Sometimes we're in our world and it's hard, right, to see outside. Okay, the fifth one, people to involve. I think this is really powerful, right? Because who do you want in your life to help you in that ambition, right? There's a lot of great people out there, and we involve a lot of I am constantly involving great people in my life. But are those the people that I should be involved with if they're not focusing to help me move forward in my goal? Not that you have to, like Bob said, it's not like you don't have to stop being friends with them, but that's not the case here. But what people in your life are going to keep you focused, that God wants you to be on, to reach that ambition, to help others, and whatever that is. Okay, so along with these 5 questions, you're going to declare your ambition, one of them, because you might have multiple. The one that's the highest priority that you want to see movement forward through this whole book club, right? Because we're going to focus on this, and we're going to keep us accountable. And then, so your partner is going to be kind, and they're going to give you a different perspective on these questions to help you clear your path on where you're going. Okay, and the people that are listening to the recording, you can post down below, and I'll post as well, that you want to be in and have a partner, accountability partner, and I'll help match up. Okay, is everybody in for this? I don't want to force this if you're not in. So give me a thumbs up if you're in, and if you do not want to do this, it's okay. Chris, are you in?
Nicole, I had one question.
Yeah. Please.
So you wrapped up the 5 questions by saying we're going to declare our ambitions. So like, should we go through the 5 questions and come up with those answers before we try to declare the ambition? Is that what I'm understanding? Will that help give us clarity on that?
I'm sorry, you're going to declare your ambition first. Okay, thank you. That's a great question. Okay.
Okay.
So declare your ambition first, and then we're going to move towards that ambition through the 5 questions. So you have a clear path.
And Chris, are you in?
Chris, are you in? I can't see if you did thumbs up or thumbs down. Your thumbs up. Okay, I can see you now. Okay, good. All right, so I'm just going to partner on how my screen is, your pictures. Okay, so there's no rhyme or reason for this. So Suzanne and Leslie, we'll put you together. Pam and Kate. Belinda and Chris. And Francine and myself. Okay. So what we're going to do, and you can do this at your own time. Now you can do private messenger, you can exchange numbers, you can do Zoom. And if you need the Zoom link, I have one. I'm sure Pam will be willing to share her Zoom link if you need one, if you want to do it by Zoom. But just set up a time that you guys can go through these questions together. And maybe you write it down, take pictures before, and then during your meeting time, then you can discuss, right? And it gives your partner a time to kind of process and look at your ambition, and then look at your answers and clearing your path. And then that way you can discuss, obviously when you get together, you're going to discuss each one, so that when you write things down, you might not get the full perspective of what that means for them. So you're going to share those. And then each one, you're just going to kind of share from an outside perspective what they might be missing, right? Or something you might want to add a value. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, so how do we connect with each other? We have to,
I need Chris's last name.
Chris, can you share? Well, you know what we'll do? So you know what you will do? Let's do this. So I'm gonna make that post. I'm gonna put these 5 questions on a post on Facebook. And what I'll do is, then you can just, you'll see everybody's name in their group, you know, and then that way you can private message each other because you'll see each other's name. And then you can just private message each other. And then that way you can, you know, but Chris, I don't see your last name on here. So can you share that? What's your last name?
Yeah.
So Belinda.
Yeah, it's Coban. It's Koban.
Okay.
Okay.
can we just put our
Okay.
telephone numbers in the chat?
Sure. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you can throw your phone number in the chat if you want.
Yeah. And then again, if you, for people recording, just put your name down below, say, yes, I want accountability partner, and then we'll just match up. Okay.
Well, Leslie, how do you want to connect? Phone call?
Put it right in the, write it in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. So, so this is again, to keep us accountable to move forward and clearing our path to meet those ambitions, because we're doing all this book study work and we want to have action, right? So you don't want to do this book study club and say, yeah, I learned all about that, but I didn't do anything with it, right? So this is forcing us to move forward and to put this in action, which I think is really powerful. Does anybody have any, like, anything that we have a few minutes. So I was thinking, does anybody have limiting beliefs that they want to share or that they're struggling with? Because I was struggling with my limiting beliefs until it just hit me in the head. So does anybody have anything that they want to share or they're struggling with? Yes, Christine, you're muted. So yeah.
Oh, sorry. I've been thinking about this for a while because of another class that I'm taking. And one thing that I realized is that a limiting belief, it is good to think about because it may become such a part of you, you don't even realize it's there anymore, you know? So 2 of my limiting beliefs, one has to do when I was right out of college and I became a supervisor over this child abuse investigative unit. And I was a hot mess. Like, I don't know how that happened, why I was in that position. I had no idea what I was doing. I was not happy at all with the work I had. And what happened was I ended up telling myself I was not a leader. And I embraced that for years, I mean, decades, and hadn't thought about it in a long time until like just a couple of months ago. And obviously that's impeding a couple of the goals that I have for myself, you know, right now in my life. So yeah, I think that's why journaling is really important too, you know, because you can go back and read over things that were happening in your life. Because sometimes we just may not even remember those things that are holding us back.
I gotta unmute you.
Yeah, Francine, that's really powerful, right? Because I think that, again, when we get so wrapped up in our life, it's really hard sometimes because this is the life you're living. And this is since childhood, like how Bob refers back to childhood, limiting beliefs, right?
I think that's where they all start.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're very vulnerable when you're little and you have a lot of people of authority in your life, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, the adults that are in your family and around you, the school teachers, and then the kids at school. The kids at school really put a zinger on me because I was not very athletic as a kid. And when they chose teams, you know, for kickball or whatever, I was the last one chosen. Like, whoever goes on this team, whoever gets Suzanne gets the, you know, the handicap, so to speak. And, you know, that drove my life for a long, long time. I mean, I'm an adult and it was still driving me. I did a lot of work with Bob Ferguson was teaching the Pacific Institute. And I took that, believe it or not, 17 times to set myself with new recordings in my head as to who I was. And I am somebody that, a bird keeps running into my window here. That's the second time he's done it. He wants some Shaklee vitamins, I guess. Yeah, but you know, I had to really push myself to change all that. And there was one time, there was a small Shaklee group that held a meeting in Sunset Beach on the coast of North Carolina, and I was asked to speak. And I was scared to death. I would have been scared to death, but after all of this work that I'd done on my head, that I wasn't a leader, that I wasn't somebody that anybody would listen to. And I got up there, I spoke after Linda Rodriguez, who was a very good speaker at the time, you know, and I just winged it. You know, not winged it, but I just really did it well. You know, I knocked it out of the park. And from then on, it gave me more confidence that, you know, maybe I'm not somebody to speak in a bunch of, you know, on a big bunch in front of a bunch of people, but the people that I do speak to honor and listen to what I have to say. And then beginning of this month, it was my birthday. And I was in tears, to tell you the truth. All day long, I got phone calls from people that, you know, were just reinforcing that I really helped them a lot. And then Pam did the same thing for me at the convention in Atlanta a few years ago, when she was, you know, they were doing the lineage and Barb Lagoni's lineage, and she was up there after Barb, and my son and daughter-in-law were in the audience, and I got a text from my son, and he said, "Mom, that's who you are to me and a lot of people." So, you know, those limiting beliefs can really, really screw you up.
And Suzanne, and you think about that, because you were following God's word and he wants you to be there for those people, right?
Yeah.
And so think about that. You were following what he put in place in your path, and you didn't let anything distract that, because you're there for people, and that's really powerful. And so people really appreciate that, right?
Yeah, and I can see it, because
Yeah.
I was the last one chosen.
But that's being a Mary, not a Martha.
Well,
Right?
yeah, what I'm saying is it really crushed my how I ran my life.
Yeah.
Directed how I ran my life.
It is
That's
true. And it's
excellent.
true that when you overcome those views, those labels that people have put on you, and you fight through them like you did, Suzanne, and taking that course 17 times, whatever it took to get the messages in and reprogram those thoughts, you show up differently and you can become different. I had those things with my dad. He used to call me brainless wonder and shit for brains. I mean, it was said jokingly, but I really questioned my intelligence. And I used to put myself on a game show, like it was The Price is Right or Let's Make a Deal. One of those shows, I was on The Price is Right when it was in the big showcase at the end that I would win the $25,000 showcase, and with the camper and the trip and all that stuff, right? When I was little, I used to watch that show. And I used to tell myself, if you get the right answer, you win $1 million. And I would really work hard to get the right answers and to tell myself and prove to myself through my test scores at school that I was smart and that I was capable. And that's why it's so important for me to have gone to a good college and to be on the dean's list and to do that work to remind myself that I am smart. And that's important to me to feel like when I talk to people that they value me and they value what I have to say, because I felt like I was so small when I was little, and I had to really fight like all those years of growing up to not be that person. My dad, I mean, I love him. He's 85 and he's a wonderful man, but he just didn't have some of that control of the tongue, if you will, would say things without thinking and sometimes sarcastic. And I had long hair. People ask me, "What, have you always had short hair? Why don't you grow your hair?" And still that's fear in me. And I've always had short hair because I had hair down to here, maybe Francine's length one time, and you have your hair back here, Francine. I had it down here like this. And I was busy all the time. And I would, have you ever done this? And like, you know, get your hair out of the way because you don't have whatever. And I would do that. And there was this kid in our town that used to walk. He was bored. We had lived in a little rural town. And he would walk up the streets all the time. And he had long hair and he would swing his hair. And his name was Dan Grant. And my dad used to say, "Hey, Grant, what are you swinging your hair for?" And he would call me that like in an off-putting down way.
Mm-hmm.
And I cut my hair because that impacted me so much, the way my dad viewed me. And I didn't want to be this person who had nothing to do. So he would just stroll the streets of town like a bum kid. And I've always cut my hair. Do you see that's why I'm where I'm more comfortable with my hair is short? Something like that that can define your entire life of a hairstyle because what your father said to you. And I love my dad, and I did the Pacific Institute, and a lot of the stuff that came up was stuff that he told me in his words, and how we own that. And we take that on as truth. And that's hard stuff. So get in there and look in the past and those labels of what people said to you, because changing that can change your life.
Yeah,
So
and my coping mechanism, because people didn't, I wasn't a team, they didn't want me on their team. So my coping mechanism was, okay, I'm just going to bear in on my schoolwork, and I'm going to be the best in school, so everybody can look at me that way. I can win that way. So I was on, and my mother instilled in me. Because my mother had a very hard life. She was on her own at age 16. She didn't get past the 8th grade, and that really bothered her a lot. She was a very intelligent lady. She was well schooled in her own way, particularly on nutrition when she was an adult. But she always took me to the high school graduations and instilled to me that I wanted the gold tassel and the gold cord around my neck, because that was the California Scholastic Scholarship Society, or whatever it's called. And so I did. I got the gold tassel and the cord. And then I went to the University of Southern California, and I was on the dean's list. And then I got accepted to graduate school at 2 places, one in the University of Utah, one at UCLA. Well, I went to University of Utah to check it out. It was snowing. And I said, no, you ain't going there. So I went to UCLA, and that's where I met Steve. So I cleared my own path, not realizing what I was doing, focusing in on education. And in a way, when I went back to a high school reunion, all these people that were the cliquey guys, the popular people, they're a bunch of failures, and they were still clicking, and I had moved beyond all that stuff. I got on a different team, so to speak, because, I decided that I'm not going to let and I learned through the Pacific Institute that I can't let the past, what people put in me, to run me.
that's right.
And I've made look at where I am. I'm master coordinator. I was somebody that was a scientist and didn't have any people skills, no business skills, didn't know how to talk to people, didn't know anybody when we moved to North Carolina, and I wanted to start a business. So I had a lot of uphills to climb, but you can do it if you just set your goals, get rid of I still have limiting beliefs on ambitions. So there's still work to be done, but I know that, I know you can do it. If I can do it, everybody can do it.
I love that. And it's so worth doing the hard work. And that's why we're here today. And I think it's interesting that today is the start of Lent. And I was thinking about what I'm going to give up, what I'm going to do. And I'm certainly not giving up sweets, but anyway, I know I think about it every Lent. But we want to succeed in our goals, right? So I thought about journaling, and I think about what Francine said today. And I've been a stickler about journaling, and I've never journaled because I think when I was little, somebody read my diary and made fun of what I wrote. So I'm afraid of writing things down. And that's why I talk so well and don't write very well at all. It's all from way back there. And so I'm encouraging myself to journal every day in the morning in my quiet time during Lent. And I'm going to try to do it for 40 days. And that's a hard thing for me. I'm afraid. I'm really afraid to write stuff down. And people write pages. So
I've never been able to do that either.
I just want to encourage you to find a thing that will stretch you in this next time. And maybe it's just 40 days, but 40 days can turn into 40 weeks, right?
Habits.
Years. So we want to make good habits, but I just really thank you guys for being here today. And every week I get a little more from you and from this group, and I'm loving this book. And yesterday was my daughter Isabel's birthday. She's my 4th one, and she turned 20. And she's the one, if you remember at the beginning, she told me about this book and about Bob Goff, and and Nicole shared the book, the devotional book that we're raffling off. So if you're listening, make sure you're commenting in our Facebook so you can get in the raffle to win the Bob Goff devotional book. Walk in Grace, Live in Love. What's it called? I don't know. what is it called? Something like that. But I do read it every day. And it was her birthday, and I gave her the other 2 books of Love Does and Everybody Always. Yesterday morning, I told her they have the book Everybody Always for kids.
Yeah, I saw
If
that.
you have any kids in your life, like the age that can read and would appreciate that, that's a great gift to get. I found it on Amazon, and I was telling her about it, and she said, "Oh, I want to get the other books. I have them in my cart on Amazon, but I haven't ordered them yet." And I'm like, "Oh, well, soon." And I had them wrapped in a gift for her yesterday, so I gave her that and a couple other things. So I'm just loving, having some Bob Goff in my life, and I thank you for being present during the week. I'll post up the questions for the in between session stuff so we can keep on our path. Partner up with your person. Find them on Facebook Messenger, message them through this group. You can tag them really big. If they don't answer you, just scream louder. And we just want to close with a prayer because I'm so grateful for all of you. So dear God, we thank you for this time that we had today. And we value every word that has been shared here today. We pray that you would clear the paths in each of our lives and help us remove distractions and those damaging, limiting beliefs. We ask that you would give us the courage that we need to move beyond comfort and take those required risks that will expand the impact that our ambitions really can have. And we do this all in your name. Amen. So thanks, everybody. And invite your friends. They can catch up. And hello to my sister who said she's going to join us on the recordings, hopefully. And I hope she doesn't tell my dad what I said. Okay. Thanks for
She may
that.
have her own thoughts.
Our assignment for next week is, I love you, Dad. He's not in the group. Our assignment for next week is to read chapters 25 through 29. It's pages 173 through 211. Pages 173 through 211, chapters 25 through 29. And look on the Facebook group for more things to enhance your learning. And be well, everybody. So thanks for being here.
Did my card arrive?
Your
Thank
card.
you, everybody.
Yes.
Did